Hi and welcome to Sparkle Tart.
Welcome to our Old Treasures YouTube hop, and I'm the very last clip, so join me for one more altered art piece. Now this is something special for Sparkle Tart, and for me it's the first time I'm going to try and make this. Now I wanted to alter something I could wear, so I've chosen to alter this necklace, and I'm going to show you how I made it. And there are amazing artists participating in this one, and we're all altering an object. So I'm doing something a bit different for me, and I'm going to alter a necklace. Don't worry, you won't need any jewelry making skills, I promise, just your mixed media supplies and a little bit of courage. So come on, let's get started. So this is an old necklace that I had purchased quite some years ago, and as you can see it's sort of steampunky. Well, honestly, it's not really arty enough for me anymore. So I'm going to grab a few bits and pieces to make this into something that's a bit more of a mixed media statement. Now, the first thing I have to do is deconstruct some of the necklace. I've decided to take the chain off so it's easier to paint, removed the little arm and taken this piece off the back. Now, the only pieces of this necklace that I'm going to remain uncolored are this black piece of rubber hose here and this brass watch face, because I can use those in my design. So I'm going to start by colouring the silver with the black soot so that it's got a nice dark coloured base for whatever else goes over the top. And I'm just going to use my scungy little brush to do that. Now the trick here is going to be to put as little paint on as possible to cover it, because the more paint I add, the more of the detail I will be colouring in. Now the whole point of this swap was to alter and repurpose something, so I decided to alter and repurpose this so I could get a bit more wear out of it. Now I'm just going to paint carefully around the little bauble-y things that are on here. Alright, so I'm just going to let that dry and then I'll go over it and make sure I've got all of the little bits and pieces. Now while this is drying, I'm going to stick a few items into some of these little holes here. And I'm doing this before any of the others because these are pewter and I'm going to need to paint them black. So I have E6000 Glue, because this is the best stuff for sticking metal to metal. And dab the edges in this and then place that onto my little necklace piece there. And you can sort of see that changes the look of that, and that glue can dry while the paint's drying. Now while all of that's drying, I'm going to add the little wings to my tap here using that same glue. Get enough of it on the back to hold and then stick it onto the tap and then pop on the other wing. Double check it by having a look from above and then leave that to dry. Okay, so time to put another component on, and I just added the flowers here and glue the flower down so that the stem follows the line of the edge of this piece here. That way visually it's the same line. That looks good that way. Now I don't have this little piece stuck down, but I have it sitting on here for the wings to dry, so I could squish the wings back a little bit so that they're sitting at the right angle when the glue dries. Alright, so my wings have now dried and they are stuck in the position where they will work for me when this is finished. Now while this was happening, I went and cut all the little loops off some of my embellishments, and I had a bit of a play with some copper wire, thinking that maybe I'd want to put this over the top here, but now I'm not sure. I suppose I can put it on and then take it off if I don't like it. Now the rest of the components I've glued on have dried, and that's all looking pretty cool. Almost looks like it was meant to be there. Now this little copper bit was just some copper jewellery wire that you can bend with your fingers, and I was really fancy and twisted it around a paintbrush, and that's how I got the little spiral that I've twisted around here. Now that this flower is dry, I'm just going to add some of the black soot distress paint to it, and of course I've taken the little crystals out of the middle. So I have a selection of little patina colours here, and they're all from Ranger, and this scrubby stuff is great for making patinaed looks because it's sort of not an even surface. Now while I'm working, I'm just going to cover the copper and other bits that I don't want to colour with some black washi tape. Just means I can work without having to worry about getting anything dirty. I'm going to start with opalite and amethyst because these are the colours I want showing the least. And I'm going to apply them with this little sponge. So just make sure you've dabbed the paint onto the sponge and then dab it across the surface. Now this will take several layers to build up the right colour. If there's any little areas you would like to make sure have colour, then just dip the brush into the paint and poke it into the recessed areas, because what you'll find is that they stay more protected, so the colour will remain. I'm just going to do the same thing with the ochre and rust. Alright, time to go back in with the brush and just tap some of that colour on. Make sure you get it down in all the nooks and crannies. Now don't put that ochre and rust too far away, because you'll probably need that again. You get the most wonderful sort of old brown but sort of rust look. It's pretty awesome. So what you're aiming to do is get the look of something really old and sort of almost dirty, with little bits of colour through it, so it looks interesting. Because if it doesn't have any colour there, it tends to look a little bit and boring. And see where we're at the moment. So you can see little pops of colour with that rusty looking brown and yellow combination over the top. And I'm just starting to get bits of colour squeezed down into the pattern here. And again on that side, beginning to look yummy. Now moving on to the marine and verdigris. I'm just going to go in and, as I've been doing with the other colours, apply a little bit with a brush, and then I'm going to add the last colour, which is moss. So that's almost it for the patinas, almost. So I've got a really pretty layer of colour onto my piece. So that's going to give me a really nice backdrop to add other bits and pieces. Now remember, I've got some of these pieces covered in black here just to protect them. Now for this next lot of product, I'm just going to use the brush so that I can apply just little bits here and there. So I'm going to start just like I did before with the colours that I want to fade into the background. So I'm going to start with Crocus Fields. I'm going to take a little from the lid and sort of squash it over here onto my little mat. And I'm just going to add bits of it. And that's it for Crocus Fields. So I really did mean I just want to add a little bit. Now the difference between these two paints is all of the patinas are matte and the Art Alchemies, as you know, are metallic. So when I move that in the light, it now has a bit of a sheen. Now I don't want to cover this whole thing, I just want to accent it. Next I'm going in with Mermaid Teal. Now I've gone a little bit heavier with the Mermaid Teal because that can work into the verdigris colours, and light patina. Oh, I wish you could see this in person, it is looking really pretty. Now I'm just going to swap back to the patina, and I've got verdigris. And then I'm going to swap to rust and ochre. I'm going to have to start being quite careful here so that I don't cover up the rest of the pattern. So I'm getting a little bit of the ochre, and I'm just going to use a very light touch to apply little bits of this. So I'm just mixing a little bit of the purple patina paste in with that yellow and orange to make a really pretty coordinating brown. Now if at any point one colour starts taking over too much, just grab one of your other colours and add a little bit more back over the top. So for me at the moment I'm just going to add the tiniest bit of the Mermaid Teal because I want it to look rusty but not brown, and maybe a bit of the patina. And as you build up each of these layers, it starts to look older and rustier. And see how I've now got that play between the patinas and the metallic paints? So I've got a little bit of shimmer, but not too much. Now I think you'll still agree it's way too light at the moment. So it looks rusty, but it's too light. So, two things left to do. I'm going to add some of the Steampunk copper. Now I'm just going to have to be sparing with this Steampunk copper. I want to use it to break up those other colours, not cover them. Alright, now with the addition of this, it's now looking something like that's aged and coloured rather than been coloured. It's just helping to break up some of that other colour. It's really cool. Now at this point, pick it up and just make sure that you've got a little bit of colour on the edges. Don't have to go crazy and paint the whole thing, but it is good if you've got a little bit of something just on the edges of the piece. Now the patinas dry really fast, so you can easily pick it up and do this. So what the Steampunk copper has done is knock it back so those colours aren't so bright, but you can still see them and they're still beautiful and interesting. Now I've got 2 more bits of paint left to go. But what I also need to do is add some colour to these little brass wings here. So I'm just going over them with the Steampunk copper, just so that they're not quite so bright. And you could leave it even at that, but of course I'm not going to. So I'm going to add a little of the Mermaid Teal. And that's just giving the wings a little bit of something so they don't look quite so newly minted. I think that's going to stand out quite well on here when I'm finished. Okay, and the last version and the last bit of paint I'm going to use is the Onyx Patina. Now I need to do this very carefully because I don't want to make this black. Now what I'm doing will ensure that the next step looks beautiful and bright and vibrant, so trust me. Don't put too much paint on the brush at a time. So we now have colour, but it's knocked right back. We have a bit of shimmer, but it's also knocked back. We have rust, knocked back. Now, let me just check this against here. I think they need a bit of black. Oh yeah, that looks like it matches. Oh. Now, if anyone's going to see any of this, I'm going to need to highlight that texture. And I'm going to do that with some Inka Gold Wax Paste. So I just like to do this with my finger. And again, it'll have to be quite carefully because I don't want to end up having too much. Now, if there's any little areas you can't get into, just grab some of the paste on eyeshadow applicator and add it with that. And that really picks out the designs beautifully and helps finish that off. I'm trying to figure out if I want some over this. Maybe just a hair. Yeah, that's it. Yum. Now the next part is fun and time consuming, so I will speed this up as much as I can, because all I've got to do now is grab a whole boatload of gorgeous watch parts and little brass embellishments and decide where I'd like to stick them, if anywhere. Sometimes things seem like a good idea to embellish and it just doesn't turn out great. So if it doesn't look right, just don't use it. And of course I'm going to use my trusty E6000 to glue everything down. I need to put a reasonably big whack of the E6000 on the back here. Now I'm just going to hold both of these down for a little while. Now to finish this off, you're probably going to think I've lost my mind. I bought a whole batch of seconds gemstones from a place in Canada that sells on eBay, and you can get for $20 a selection. You don't get to choose, it's just random, but it's cut rubies, amethysts, aquamarines and sapphires, topazes, onyx, and an assortment of clear topaz, opals, and there's even some diamonds, but they're all seconds, so they're all broken somehow. And I'm going to add these as the finishing touch to my necklace. So I'm just going to use that same E6000 glue, and it will need to set overnight, and I'm just going to apply it in the little hole here with my tweezers. Oops, try not to get too much at once. I'm just going to add in here. Now I'm desperately hoping that that glue hasn't just ruined them, and that when it dries you'll be able to see the stone again. And I'm just removing any little bits of glue. And I'll leave that to dry. So I actually ended up using little tanzanites here and here and that'll just catch the light when I'm wearing it, but it's not so different from the surrounds that it's going to take over. All that's left to do now is make the chain look a little bit more like the necklace that I've created. So I'm going to add the same colours of patina paint over the top. I'm going to use Onyx, Victorian Gold and Verdigris and apply them with the paintbrush. Now, because all of these colours along with the silver already appear in the necklace, I don't have to completely coat the whole thing. I just have to dab the paint on. Once the paint's dry, it's time to grab those pliers for the last time and reattach the chain to the pendant. After a little bit of fiddling to get those links back exactly in place, my necklace is finished. Now, this is much more like something that I would like to wear these days, and I can't wait to show it to you up close. So you've got this wonderful altered pendant bit. I've added little pieces of watch parts wherever I could, and I've made sure that all the little screws and everything are nicely covered and that the bits of copper at the back won't dig into me when I'm wearing it. So I've glued these down nice and secure so they won't wiggle. You've got that lovely Art Alchemy paint right here. So you've got the wonderful shimmer from the Art Alchemy paints and the beautiful matte from the patina paints. And I didn't need to worry because my E6000 has dried perfectly clear behind both those little tanzanite gemstones, and they are brilliant and sparkling and gorgeous. All of my little bits are attached really, really well with the E6000, and if you look really closely in here, you can see all of the different little colours of paints that I've added in all of the nooks and crannies to make this gorgeous, gorgeous piece. And I've got little watch parts along with the embellishments, all stacked so it looks like something that is dragged from under the sea from 1,000 years ago. Well, maybe not the tap, but I couldn't go past it. It was so cute. So I hope you've enjoyed my first ever piece of altered jewellery, and I'm so happy that you've come all this way on the Old Treasures hop because I'm the last stop. So I hope you've enjoyed our Old Treasures YouTube hop, and remember, subscribe and leave a comment on every video to be in the running to win a prize.